There was a point where being a Marvel fan started to feel genuinely exhausting, and if you grew up during the rise of the MCU, you know exactly what I mean. For me, Marvel wasn't just another franchise that I watched casually, it was a huge part of me growing up. I was in high school when Marvel was at its peak. The run of movies leading into Infinity War and Endgame was unreal. You could feel the energy with your buddies going to the theater, and people were just excited and their reactions were loud, and it felt like everybody was tapped into the same story at the same time, and in today's day and age that is so rare. Those movies weren't just commercially successful, they felt like moments in time, and for a while after that I missed that feeling, especially from Marvel, because after Endgame the MCU fundamentally changed. Now, following Endgame felt like a pretty impossible job. You knew that it was never going to be easy. You know, how do you continue after giving audiences one of the best payoffs in blockbuster history? How do you replace over a decade of build-up and beloved characters and an emotional investment? There was never going to be a perfect answer, but what Marvel did was far from even good, because instead of slowing down and rebuilding carefully, Marvel expanded faster than ever, and for me, that's where the problem started. The MCU stopped feeling like movies, and they became an endless stream of content being forced out by a company. The constant movies in theaters and shows on Disney Plus and the presentations and just these random heroes, it felt like Marvel and Kevin Feige were throwing things at the wall, hoping that they would stick. And at first it sounded very exciting, but eventually it just became overwhelming, and you've heard it probably described as homework. Because more content doesn't always mean better content. And Phase 4 to me did have some good ideas, but unfortunately it had no clear direction, which is the complete opposite of Phases 1 through 3. And this is the part that gets lost sometimes, because not everything in Phase 4 was bad. There were some real bright spots, including WandaVision and Loki and Shang-Chi, which literally gave us our new director for the Spider-Man trilogy, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy and No Way Home. They were all special, and as a Spider-Man fan, No Way Home, that movie means a lot to me, and the nostalgia was incredible, and seeing all the Spider-Man together were great. But what made it work for me was that all the hype, you know, everywhere you looked on social media, everybody was talking about it, and that made it feel like we had a taste just for a second of that old Marvel era. But around those hits, there were still bigger issues at hand. The overall direction felt very messy, and some characters got introduced and disappeared, and some endings existed mostly just to tease another project. It didn't really feel like a bookend to the movie we were watching. A lot of the VFX looked rushed, and that was accredited to rushing the VFX workers, and some projects just didn't feel very well thought out. For the first time that I could remember, Marvel didn't feel fully in control of its own universe. And it's really unfortunate, because the Multiverse Saga had potential. It should have been amazing, because the idea itself seemed like a layup. There's different timelines and alternate versions of heroes and crossovers. That should be money, money, money. But it just felt more about a gold mine. It just felt like too often Marvel focused on the idea of the multiverse and what it could do for them as a brand, more so than what it could do emotionally. They loved more cameos and the references, and really leaned into that modern pop culture of breakdowns and less character depth and less emotional clarity, which is what I myself, and I know a lot of Marvel fans, loved from Phases 1 through 3. People will follow complicated plots, especially superhero fans, if they care about the people at the center of them. But if that emotional connection is gone, then even the biggest of spectacles like in Doctor Strange and these other movies like that, once that is gone, it just feels very empty. Marvel, because of this, lost its event feel, because when you used to go see a Marvel movie like Infinity War and Endgame, or even just like run-of-the-mill movies, you would go see those at that time and feel like, oh my god, I have to go watch the new Rockstars trailer breakdown and movie breakdown and all this stuff. And then that slowly faded away. At least for me it did, because you had a time to get excited and time to speculate and time to miss some characters. But after Endgame, that feeling faded for a while, and I think a lot of that came from the non-stop release schedule. When there's always another project around the corner, the anticipation isn't quite there. It stops feeling very special, and I really missed those packed theater experiences from the prior phases. I could remember showing up to certain movies like Love and Thunder and the Marvels, and there'd be maybe like half a theater full, and I missed the energy. I missed that feeling like everyone was locked into the same moment. There were flashes of that. Of course, Guardians 3 had that, and No Way Home had it, and Doctor Strange for a little bit had it, but it wasn't consistent until recently. Last year for me was when things started to shift. I remember Thunderbolts when it first came out, felt like it was going to be kind of a nothing of a project, but for me instead, it felt like a reminder that Marvel still knew how to tell stories centered around audiences and characters first. Instead of trying to top the universe-ending stakes every time, it focused on damaged people trying to find a purpose and doing good in the world, and that works. That's a premise that anybody can get behind, because sometimes smaller, more personal stakes can hit harder than the giant world-ending threats. And after that, Fantastic Four came out and helped continue that momentum. I thought that was a solid film. It wasn't as good as Thunderbolts, but it was another hit under Marvel's belt. And that movie felt important because the Fantastic Four had not been represented in even a good light, and Marvel finally was able to get some people back in their good graces and was able to start building again instead of just releasing. Now, when you look at where you are this year, we have Wonder Man that just came out, and I thought that was fantastic. And it's a lot of the similar creators that are going to be on Brand New Day, which everything I'm hearing sounds like it's going to be amazing, and I am loving Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and of course we have Doomsday to look forward to and Vision Quest. And when I look ahead like that, it's just really exciting, not because I think every one of those projects is going to be perfect or that I'm just blindly loyal to the Marvel brand. It feels like Marvel and Kevin Feige learned something from those mistakes, and that's what a great company is supposed to do. It's supposed to learn from their mistakes. They realize that cameos alone won't carry a universe, and that references aren't going to make crowds care about what's on the screen. People want stories, and they want emotional payoff, and they want character arcs, and that for me is what made the Prime MCU so special. And now, for the first time in a while, it feels like that energy is finally returning. But let me know in the comments below, what do you guys feel? How do you feel about the current state of Marvel? I know there's a lot of videos out there that are easy to bag on Marvel, but I feel like recently we've gotten a change, a turn of the tide, if you will. And I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Let me know all that and more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.